Hola, Filterinos. Before we get to the episode, we wanted to take a moment to address the June 24th, 2022 Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. As you know, this decision stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion. We believe everyone should have the freedom to decide what's best for themselves and their families, including when it comes to ending a pregnancy. This decision has dire consequences for individual health and safety and could have harsh repercussions for other landmark decisions. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans. Learn more by visiting podvoices.help. If you're able to support others, please consider donating to abortion funds. We're going to have a bunch of links in our show notes. Everybody here at Pop Filter encourages you to speak up, take care, and spread the word. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast on the internet with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. This season, we are taking a look at 1982, and tonight we have a very special episode for you, in that it's less special than almost any of our other episodes. To bracket, she giveth, but she also taketh away some movies that maybe we wanted to cover as well. So, there's a little bonus episode. I'm going to put away the scores so all the Greg heads can stop complaining about how he always loses. And,
I love this. And Greg heads, you can fucking eat it.
Getting a little bit of pushback on how often I totally fail to win.
And we're going to take a look at a movie off the bracket. This one's just for us. No scoring. This can't win. It can definitely get nominated for Moody's at the end of the season.
And it will.
And that movie is called Night Shift. Ron Howard's probably only movie ever to ever be in the Movie of the Year show before or after this, until we do Far and Away. With me, as always, is Mike. Mike, are you ready for the absolute avalanche of shit posts the Greg heads are about to send to you?
Yeah, I thrive on it, Greg heads. Fucking feed me. Fuel me for the next week with your hate and rage. Even though I think Greg won the last 2 weeks, so whatever.
And Greg, I'm so glad that you took a break from creating thousands and thousands of social media accounts, all with different names, to attack Mike.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes. My bot army. Unfortunately, made too many bots, and Elon Musk was like, "I will no longer use my Emerald money to buy Twitter because Greg has made too many bots," and I feel bad about that. I do.
On the day of this recording, I have seen the tweet. Elon Musk pulled out of the Twitter deal, the first time he's ever pulled out of anything. No more than, no less than 500 times today on Twitter. So good job to everybody making that joke.
Doesn't that feel like Twitter 10 years ago? It's this is when it was innocent and dumb in a different like.
I wish there was a filter that would just like know that you saw a joke once and then
show me the first person who did it. And then
I love when people figure out a word within the tweet that they can just mute temporarily. It's like I will just mute pull out for the next 24 hours.
You're going to miss a lot of good couch content.
You can't delete Musk because then all your tweets about stinky men are going to be gone. Speaking of stinky men, you guys are not competing tonight. We're just going to jovially talk about the film Night Shift and an odd comedy. This is, so far we've done a lot of comedies. Just what are your overall thoughts, starting with Mike? What do you think of overalls?
I love overalls and I miss them.
Do you do both straps up or one strap on, one strap off?
When I'm with my parents and grandparents, it's both straps. So you know the minute I'm out of the house, I'm one strapping it.
God, you had to be sick of your family screaming at you for not having both straps up.
Wear both straps. It's better for your back. And I'm like, that's backpacks. This does not affect my back at all.
Did overall straps have that trend where now all the cool kids are doing both? Now all the cool kids are one on, one off?
Oh, I'm sure. And then everybody went, wait, why doesn't anybody wear these? And they just died.
I feel like that's enough Mike time. Greg, what did you think of the film Night Shift?
A lot of times, like, I have heard of the movie or I've seen the VHS case from my days lurking in video stores all the time. This movie was, like, nowhere on my radar. I had never heard of it. And I had
Come and see level.
Yes, yeah. And, like, I went in totally blind. And it's not awful. There's probably 3 different times where I literally laughed out loud watching on my own. So that's pretty impressive. But it's a lot of it to me was just sort of not offensive, not awful, but like kind of boring, kind of like tonally like.
Boo.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you think overall, man?
This had similar where I had not heard of it at all, knew nothing going in. I just was like, brothel in a morgue. That could be a hard-hitting drama. Who knows? And I can't tell you the amount of times when my wife and I had to rewind because we were laughing too hard and missed the next things that we were saying. This movie was could have been personality defining if I saw it younger.
I'm so sorry that didn't happen. Let me say, Mike, it worked anyway. You have a lot of personality traits from both of these two gentlemen, whether you saw the show or saw the movie earlier
weird.
or not. Now this doesn't matter because it's not for points. Usually the winner of the show is the person who agrees with me the most. But yeah, I'm closer to Mike. I had seen this movie before. Probably when I was a kid, I would do like, I'm going to see every movie of this filmmaker's. But I was a kid, so I would pick like Ron Howard. Could have been, I don't know, Bergman, but I went with Ron Howard. But like, just remembered the basic premise, remembered the characters, but I laughed way harder than I thought I would at this movie.
Mm-hmm. I also laughed way harder than I thought I would, and that's one thing I definitely would not fault it for not being funny. I didn't think it was as consistently funny. I felt like there were long periods where the movie did not attempt actually to be funny, and so it's not like they were swinging and missing. But maybe I'm too used to the modern comedies where the joke per second rate is very high, because there were just long periods of this where it was like whimsical but not pointedly funny, like where it didn't seem.
Yes.
And then there were other long periods where it was treating things that were kind of troubling in a way that was almost like whimsical. Like and we'll probably get into them. But it did not offend me. I don't hate it. It's not disgusting. And I did laugh occasionally. It just, like, Mike, would you say you were laughing, like, from beginning to end?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So you're a moron then.
Okay. Yeah, I laughed my balls off.
Was it just because you felt like the vibe kind of kept the movie funny throughout, so that after a while, even little things were pretty funny?
I can fall in love with vibe for sure. And then there's a certain point where you're, like, so primed that Michael Keaton can lift an eyebrow and just rolling.
Yeah, if the first joke of the movie was Michael Keaton is a chauffeur driving Clint Howard to his prom, Clint Howard's in the back seat, Michael Keaton says, "Do you like music?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, cool." Yeah. Michael Keaton starts singing. If that was the first joke of the movie, it's not going to work. But you're so primed at that point with Michael Keaton. And the fact that I didn't want to fucking murder him, that's impressive right there. Because I've been around a lot of cokeheads, and he clearly is. I think in a way that, like, remember when you were a kid, you didn't understand necessarily. You just thought Beavis and Butthead were funny, but not necessarily doing drugs constantly off screen. That's going on here, too, as well, right?
He's the cokehead of a primetime drama from the 80s where they can't mention it or say it. He just has all the tics.
I wonder why his name is Billy Blaze and not, like, Sidney Snorts or something like that. Like, because he definitely does it. He definitely puts off a major cokehead energy. But where's he even getting the money for that?
Well, that's why he's broke.
Yeah. That's why he's got to do so many different jobs.
Greg, I wish you were in charge of a reboot of the Garbage Pail Kids. Because Billy Blaze and Sidney Snorts are cards that I would like to own. All right, so a movie that worked mostly for us comedy-wise, but instead of just Chris Farleying out and going over all the funny lines, let's take a break, and then let's actually dive in to this film.
Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies.
After directing a Roger Corman cheapie called Grand Theft Auto, Ron Howard was ready to make a studio picture, while also getting further away from his acting career, portraying such pussy dipshits as Opie Taylor and Richie Cunningham. Enlisting the help of his Happy Days co-star Henry Winkler, along with a couple of TV actors who were trying to get their careers going, Michael Keaton and Shelley Long. The movie also marked the first collaboration between Howard, his longtime producing partner Brian Grazer, and screenwriters Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel. This foursome would go on to make Splash, Parenthood, and Edtiv. The plot of Night Shift almost sounds like one of Corman's movies. Two losers, a nebbishy dork, and a coke-addled idea man, turn the morgue they work at into the headquarters of their new operation, pimping, which they discover is not easy, but is definitely necessary. 1982 is the peak of the comedic sex romp, smack dab in the middle of the releases of Risky Business, Revenge of the Nerds, Bachelor Party, The Last American Virgin, Class, Private School, Private Resort, Private Class, The Last American Private Virgin, and, of course, the legendarily successful Porky's. A lot of those movies are impossible to watch today because of their particular mixture of sex and comedy. Taste buds, I ask you this. If we're only covering one of those movies as an example, did we make the right choice with Night Shift? Or does it come off just as awkward and gross as a lot of those other movies?
No, I was shocked that for 1982,
Shocked, right?
In the era of what came around, that how kind of forward thinking it was when it comes to sex work, and that the sexual comedy is never. Isn't it hilarious how this girl is fucking a guy she doesn't know and would not have consented to this? That's never the joke in this movie.
Yeah, it definitely has way more heart than any of those. I think that there's a different charge to level against it, which is like, is this in any way a realistic portrayal of like sex work and how it operates and everything? But I think it is not engaging with actual sex work and instead is engaging with movie sex work, and maybe that's its own issue or whatever. But it certainly doesn't like go for cheap jokes, nor does it make it. I don't feel like it often robs the female characters of their like agency or humanity.
There's one joke I can think of if you were too woke for broke, and it's in the back third, like the back 2/3 of the movie, where Winkler gets all the ladies out of jail. Or no. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. It's he does get them out of jail, but there's they took a cab there, and they're like, give him a tip.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, move over, and wants to blow him, and they're like, no, with money. That's like one of the only ones where I'm like, I guess if you are so up your butt liberal, you could be like, well, here's why that's not, but I don't give a shit.
See,
that just made me giggle.
To me, for a movie in 1982, especially amongst that list of movies that I just read, some of them, like, we would cancel the show if we like picked Porky's for the bracket. For that to be the thing that you can think of, Mike, I find very, very impressive. Another point another part I want to point to is Winkler finds out that after having sex with Shelley Long's character, he thinks that they're together now, which means she has to quit her job of being a prostitute, being a sex worker. When she doesn't do that, because that is her job, he gets upset and says, well, at least I'm not a whore, or calls her a whore. And everything about the movie and in that scene shows that he is the piece of shit trying to use her job against her. And I think that's so forward thinking. I think that like the movie goes out of its way to show that like, yeah, these girls are screwed because of the illegality of their career choice that shouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah, it definitely projects this like sort of utopian vision of what if we admitted to ourselves sex work was important, not just that it's like okay, not just that it's like permissible in a society, but that it is important, that sex work is important, and that because it's important, it needs to be protected and legitimized. And
healthcare.
Yeah, it's sort of like it imagines a future where that's right around the corner in a way that it's like so sad that obviously that's very much not the case, like right around the corner from 1982. But that's what keeps it from being gross, is because what it says is like, it's okay for women to do this. It's okay for men to utilize these services. Mm-hmm. We just need to protect everybody involved and legitimize it so that it's not a dirty secret that's ruining people's lives.
And I think the movie masterfully walks like 80s conservatism because they put so much of that argument in Keaton's mouth. So Howard and Grazer and co can be like, no, the dumb guy was saying it. But his whole speech about like this lonely, isolated guy just needs to talk to somebody. He cannot, but he can pay a woman so he doesn't go out and murder and harass fucking Girl Scouts.
Yeah, he said
Girl Scouts come a lot in this movie.
If we don't have prostitution, then this person is going to rape a Girl Scout, which is that's a straw man a little bit, but
it went extreme. But like
little foreshadowing for cringiest moment there.
When you think about what what the argument is like, yeah, like there are, let's embrace and accept that there are isolated people out there who need human contact, and maybe they won't fucking kill themselves if they pay for it.
And that there's people who will offer that service, and there's people who want that service,
right.
And that like the only thing that keeps that from being a completely okay thing is that by pushing it into the shadows, we've let disgusting people take it over, and we've left people unprotected. But yeah, like it is a need, and
right.
it is a marketplace, and it always will be, and it always has been. Maybe we could just do it in a way that is ethical. Maybe
next to corpses.
Actually, that's one part that I forgot. Is I thought that they turned the morgue into a brothel.
No,
right.
Yeah.
But like
it's
outside of one frat party that has two people fucking inside of one of the big body shelves, that is just their headquarters.
One of the central tenets of the movie is that a 1980s New York morgue is often not a very busy place. I have to say, I do need to inspect that one like supposition, because you hear of bodies coming into the morgue, but 1980s New York, that was a dangerous place. People were catching bodies out there.
And this movie makes it seem like that. Like, I would never go so far as
sure.
to say that New York is the Samantha of the Sex and the City romp, but New York is a bad place, particularly for somebody like Henry Winkler's character, who is absolutely pushed around by the city, including one of my favorite moments where he's just trying to get through a doorway at the same time as another guy. The other guy crosses first and shoves him up against the wall and then leaves.
This
now
movie
New
does
York,
not,
baby.
This movie does not disguise the fact that Henry Winkler is a tiny gentleman.
It's so weird that his first role was the Fonz.
Yes.
Was he on every Apple box on the studio in that show? Like,
I think
for
he just
him
grew
to be the cool guy.
sideburns like really well. Like that had to be it. I don't know.
Like them did him out. This feels like this should have been his entire career. I don't want to step on it too much. I know we'll get to that later. Sex.
Let's sort of combine these two things and go to sex and death. Is morgue just a place where they thought it would be funny? Is that as far as this goes, or is the movie trying to make some sort of connection between sex and death?
Look, I love this movie, right? I've said it, I'll say it again. I don't know how upper level intelligence it's trying to actually make any connection between sex and death. I think, given what our job is, we can make a connection between sex and death and say, if you're surrounded by death, it is very easy, especially if you have a cokehead Jiminy Cricket next to you, to be like, we will all die. Why would I not embrace every bit of life and passion that I can right now?
I just want to point out that I've fucking seen Pinocchio, and to say cokehead Jiminy Cricket, that is redundant. Okay.
I mean, you did just kind of say what it was, though, right, Mike? Like, I mean, Michael Keaton's message ultimately is, memento mori. Like, tomorrow is not guaranteed, and so why do you work so hard at your job that doesn't love you back when you could work a side hustle to get extra money for even more blow? Why not embrace the things that you like, right? Why keep eating the shit sandwich every single day when you could just make your life better, and pretty soon your life will be an absolute zero anyway, because we're all going to the same place in the end.
You know what it is? It's each character is they're the different definitions of YOLO. You only live once, so let's get crazy. You only live once, so why would we get crazy?
I've heard both of those songs.
Okay, so and then one last thing. We talked about the agency of the girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shelley Long plays the sex worker that we get to know the most, but as a group, did this ring true? Like, and Greg sort of hit this earlier. Does this movie have any inkling as to how the sex industry actually works, and does it care? Is that just sort of like a way to get us to the friendship and laughs?
If you want to see a movie about the sex industry, watch Tangerine. Like that movie, I think, is about what it's like to be a sex worker in the real world. But very much this movie is engaging, I think, with just like almost allegorical or like imagistic levels of what it actually means to be a sex worker. And so then I think all of the
I mean, you could say, Greg, like the research that they did was watch other movies with prostitutes.
for sure, yeah, for sure.
It definitely feels like, even though it's before, it watched Pretty Woman and Milk Money, and we get.
I mean,
it.
he mentions in the bathtub. He mentions, who is it? Joan Crawford? No, Jane Fonda in a movie about.
Include.
Yeah. Okay. So like, he mentions the image of the prostitute, not the actual prostitute, but the movie.
I know
image.
what sex work is like.
Yeah,
I've seen the movie Clute.
Yeah, and like, you know, and even his concerns about it are very much the concerns of like a movie man and not the real world. I mean, your number one concern, I think, if you are visiting a sex worker is like, am I going to get jumped? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to get arrested? Not like, is she only pretending to like to bro,
Right.
you paid money for this. Yes, she's only pretending to like she's at work right now. What do you think, man? Don't get hung up on it. Other like
Just enjoy it. The stripper loves you. Go with it.
And the three of us are only telling our audience that because of the ages we are now. If we were recording this 10 or even 15 years ago, we would have different messages about that whole thing. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this cast. Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye. All right, guys, let's take a break from analysis of sex and death and blah, blah, blah. The cast of this movie, particularly the big three, is so important. So I want to dedicate an entire segment to them. We'll get to their overall chemistry in a second, but let's start with Henry Winkler. Is it horseshit that Henry Winkler wasn't a bigger star?
Yes. We know that now with Gene Cousineau in
yeah.
Barry, and then what's his fucking name in Arrested Development? He's so good as an older actor. Like, oh man, and because like I watched Happy Days as a kid because I didn't have cable, and I don't remember him being stunning, but probably because the material. But him watching this movie now, it's like, why wasn't he just an everyman comedian in comedies for fucking years?
Why would you watch this guy act and then be like, you know what he should do? He should be the really confident greaser guy. Like, no way, man. This is what he was born to do, and this is what he does successfully every time after this movie, which is just, like the kind of small, beaten down, but like very funny. He has so many very funny throwaway lines. Like when Michael Keaton is like, hey, do you want a chocolate? And he's like, no, thank you. And he's like, it was in the fridge. And he just says, I understand that. He's like, do you want a chocolate? No, thank you. It just came out of the fridge. I understand that. Like,
he also, what a good mentor to teach you how to deal with this kind of person, to deal with your cokehead coworker that you don't
What the fuck are you talking about right now, you piece of shit?
Yes, I understand that.
Why don't I stab you in the side? How's that sound?
Sure.
There is I don't know how apocryphal it is, but there is definitely at least an urban legend of why he did not become a above the title star.
Too tiny?
It's this movie. That this was supposed to be it. And I don't want to get to him yet, but he had the show stolen from him so fucking hard that it was like, well, all right, well, Winkler still, we'll leave him in the 70s and on TV because we're going to turn all of our attention to not just one other person, but I think two other people. I think now watching this, it's a bit of a bum rap. I think that you guys are both bringing up incredible examples of how even though he doesn't get any of the scripted funny lines, you know, like that example, Greg, that you just said of like, I understand, that on paper does not play. You know, he's doing it. And in a lot of ways, I think that he was so steamrolled by New York, the character. Chuck Lumley. Chuck was so steamrolled by New York that almost like a Charles Dickens novel, New York came to life in Michael Keaton and then had to was around him all the time of just in your face rudeness.
Literally the city was a character.
Yeah, literally the city. That jacket that Blaze wears throughout
I want it so much.
That's just New York graffiti that he's wearing. This gives him all the stuff where it's such a thankless role, and I think he soars past it.
Yes. His interacting with the dog that Lancelot's its Monty Python style through his hallway as it's chasing him. And that's when I was like, oh, this movie's a cartoon. Because at first I was like, what the fuck is this garbage? I was like, no, I think I have to get on board because this is this movie. It's every line delivery, and it is that the heart and soul, because Michael Keaton is a cartoon character. But he's needed the chemistry between all three of them is what makes everything pop. I think if you lose any of the trio, it falters.
All right, so let's get to the next one. Let's get to Shelley Long. Before we get into her performance, do you guys wish that we had done the Rushmore for Hot Girls?
Yes.
1 week or 2 weeks later?
Yes, it would have been differently.
If I had seen her in her underwear and socks before we did the Rushmore, it might have been different.
Do you know how you can tell that, and we're going to get to her actual performance in 1 second, but do you know how you could tell that Henry Winkler already had money and Michael Keaton and Shelley Long were up-and-comers?
Because when she sees that he has a kitchen, she's like, whoa, a kitchen!
Not the characters, Greg. Talking about the actors in real life. I know how cool it is when people have kitchens, but it's their teeth.
That's pretty dope.
Shelley Long and Michael Keaton have different colored teeth, and some of them are bigger or smaller than other ones. They look like normal people. And then, fast forward 3 years later, and for at least Long and Keaton, because they became stars, their teeth are all just boop, perfectly white, perfectly the same size all the way around.
And his get worse. They stole his teeth to make their own.
As our sex worker with the heart of gold, how does she work as as the other half of what ultimately becomes a rom-com?
The tropes are alive with the sound of music in her, right? Like the movie itself isn't really doing her any favors, but I think she injects so much humanity into it, and you can see why Chuck falls in love with her. Especially because he's with...
That to me is so important. That's the key.
And she's so charming and funny, but real, and it's movie real for prostitution, right? But she's she doesn't hide the darker or seedier stuff, but she has an optimistic attitude and tries to push her head down and through it, but she opens up and is vulnerable to him in a way that his fiance is not. Is that Dave's mom from the Hulu show Dave?
It is
his fiance.
Yes,
yep.
And she's such a gross shrew and is mean to him that it's very easy to be I'm going to fall in love with my sex worker neighbor who is life sucks sometimes, but that's okay.
She's so much more comfortable and herself than you ever see her in Cheers. She's funny in Cheers, and I like her performance, but I feel in the same way that Henry Winkler, the Fonz is a good character, but it's not a good character for him. I feel like Diane is not a great character for her. I feel this character is what's good for her. She just seemed so natural and so alive in the scenes that even if she wasn't doing anything that blew you away, that in and of itself, just that presence and that life, gave so much extra to this movie. You could really you felt that pull towards her, and you said, Ryan, you could buy that helped you buy the romantic angle.
There's a real thing going on here where she knows who she is, and in a good way, but she also knows how people look at her. Mm-hmm. And back then, but even now, when you let's say that you're a sex worker, that's the start and end of what people think of you. You know, they don't think about that you have a personality or that you're an actual human. They think oh, whore, and then they move on.
And you see that in the first scene with her where she's like, don't I know you? And right away he's so afraid that she's saying, haven't you visited me in my professional capacity? He doesn't even think it could mean, don't I live down the fucking hall from you?
You are my next door neighbor. But she's such I don't want to sound hacky, but such a ray of sunshine. And it's because she keeps putting herself out there, knowing that there's all of these people out there that will chip her down specifically because of that. And she hears comments, and it keeps cutting back to her and watching her reaction. And some comments will she'll flinch an eye, and then put the smile back on and move on. And then sometimes the comments just break her to her core. But she keeps putting herself out there as a character. And I don't know. I thought it was very impressive.
And I think that's why you can see why the rest of the girls, she's not fully in control. It's definitely democratic, but if Belinda's like, here's what we're doing, they're like, I guess we'll listen to Belinda.
If she starts a chant, they'll pick it up.
Yes.
That's true of all of humanity.
Falls in love with her as a friend, like that kind of friendship. Like, you guys should be together. Like, you can see why she is the heart of the movie, and everybody who spends more time with her ends up just being like, yeah, she's the best, because she fucking is.
Is it a little naive, though, to just be like, oh, it's hot in here, that's why I have to take off my pants?
Yeah.
Well, the movie is very aware of itself as a movie. Like, even like we briefly mentioned it, but like the dog that like runs free in the hall, like the movie goes out of its way to be like, okay, you are in a fictive space. Like, this is not a real space. This is a movie space, and so she's gonna do a movie thing, which is, oh, the window doesn't open, and so I think it gives itself this extra layer of like, it's kind of satire, so maybe it's not just as dumb.
Well.
That's how we choose to see it, because we liked it a little bit.
Yes.
The movie does every 80s trope, so that could be one. But, I mean, Keaton joins that frat we talked about. So it really is it's playing all the hits. So I think it'd be easy to see that it's like, yeah, see, but we're commenting on it, or we're using it winkingly.
The dog thing is like, your script is done, but now you have a deck of cards, and on each one is things that happen in every movie, and then you shuffle them, and you take the first three and you just throw them right into your script.
You know what?
Don't even think about it; just get it in there.
You know what I felt like it was, Ryan? I felt like they were making the movie, and then somebody just went and saw After Hours, and they're like, "We need something unexplainable and weird to be in this movie. There needs to be something that feels quasi supernatural."
There was a guy at the end, the last dog time, who was just standing outside of his apartment. And I thought, oh, this is the owner of the dog. They're going to explain this. But the dog came from around a different corner, and the guy just watched him go
I think he comes out to see the dog pick on Henry Winkler. I think that's like what he does. Oh, dog's back. I'm going to go see.
Wouldn't you?
There's nothing on TV. I'm going to go outside and watch New York. All right, let's get to it. I think that this show, and I have no examples, so don't ask me, but I think that this podcast has a real problem with, in the past, this movie launched a superstar. Because we go back and we watch it like for the first time in a long time, and we're like, why? What the fuck? Who gives a shit? This movie launched Michael Keaton. He was directly given the Mr. Mom job from this. And if you look at his IMDb, it is a solid 20 years, to the point where he is the most famous superhero of all time. He is on a roller coaster after this movie.
Does
this make sense to you?
One of his first lines, they are meeting, and he's like, doing his nod along, Bob, and he's talking, not really listening. He's just like, oh, that's going to be radical, Chuck. That guy's dead. And right there, in that, like, no breath in between those two things. And it's just like, yep, this guy's a star.
You know what I felt? I felt like for a lot of it, it's like he has some of the funniest moments, but I kept coming back to this idea of like his batting average. What is his batting average versus Henry Winkler's batting average, which is like taking very little space to be very funny, whereas Michael Keaton is like, this was a character type in the 80s, probably because cocaine was so popular, but it reminds me of early Robin Williams stand-up, where he like doesn't stop talking for like half of a second, and sometimes it was just
Greg, Robin Williams is dead, so tread carefully here.
Yeah, I will restrict my comments to the very much alive Michael Keaton. I just felt like sometimes things wouldn't land for a while, and I know the character is supposed to be annoying, but sometimes he just was annoying in the absence of being humorous at the same time.
See, I totally hear you, but for me with Keaton, and this surprised me because at my advanced age, much more advanced than when I saw this for the first time, everything is fucking annoying. Like, even things I like, I'm like, fuck you, you're annoying. So once Michael Keaton comes in, I'm nervous, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got that character trope of dancing to music that isn't there.
Yeah.
That's why he sings the Rolling Stones all the time. He doesn't need music. His body's just vibing and jiving all the time. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm going to want this guy out of here so soon. And I get the batting average thing, but although his batting average of lines that made me laugh to didn't is low, none of the lines drove me crazy. None of the lines I was like, get the fuck out of my movie right now. And that's what I really appreciated, is that they were either funny or they were interesting in some way and not just like a totally deflated joke that went nowhere.
And by the time he opens up on Christmas and is like talking about his shitty dad, it informs everything that comes after and what came before. And you're like, oh, you talk nonstop so you don't have to sit with these kind of thoughts. Like, it all feels real and grounded, and was pretty surprising. Like, I know he can do that now as an actor, but I did not know he could do that, or that this movie would ask that of this character.
Also, we spent the first part of the 2010s being overwhelmed by unself-aware idiots in comedy. And then, unfortunately, we had to be overwhelmed by unself-aware idiots in real life. And it became less funny as we went along. But this takes it to a whole new level where Chuck goes over to Blaze's house, to Michael Keaton's house. And Michael Keaton's like, how did you get in? Oh, the security system. I should leave a complaint. Like, where are the security guards? Bitch, that's not like just a lie to sort of make yourself look richer or better. There's no way that one could ever think that where you live has security guards. What are you doing right now?
Is that not a joke he was saying as the character?
I don't. That's such a good
No,
question.
dude.
I don't
Impossible
think
to
so.
tell.
I think he's not trying to make the two of them laugh. Like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be great if this place had security guards? He's that delusional or something.
He's a
I don't know.
He's a compulsive fabulist. Like he nonstop. He's creating nonstop either his ideas or his theories or fabrications about his life. I don't think it quite raises up to lies, but it's like it's untruths that he actively tells about his lie to sort of make himself seem more important. That's one thing that's annoying about him. Ryan, you mentioned the Christmas thing. Part of what's so endearing about his character ultimately near the end of the movie is his relationship, Billy Blaze's relationship with Belinda. Because it's one thing for the romantic relationship, whatever, but like you see a real friendship form, and the way they talk to each other is so beautiful. The like where he says about Chuck, well, Chuck's not like you and me. And like he says that in such like a warm way. And so I love how there's like that second side to him, and you really do see it come through. The rest is just, I think, what you said, Mike, like escaping the thoughts, escaping the memories of a terrible
But in that, you can see why Chuck also falls in love with Blaze. Is he does see everybody alone, or everybody on their own merit. He doesn't care about city's hierarchy or whatever. Like he's a manic pixie dream dude in all the good ways without the bad. Because he also learns from Chuck. It's not just Chuck needs to learn to go more free. Like he starts learning and emails out. He's like, oh, ideas are good, but here's the certain kind of ideas you should put energy into. Here's the kinds of people. Yeah, I think that beautiful thing is I could see Chuck learning from is like, yeah, everybody is a human and treat them as such.
We'll get to this in the next segment if maybe we had one too many Act 3s or denouements, or maybe one way too long Act 1. We're going to talk about all that soon. But the way that Chuck backs Keaton up and is like, or Blaze up and says like, no, this is actually a really good guy who deserves respect, is like, that's one or two scenes after they're in the lawyer's office and Henry Winkler is going to fucking not
they are scrapping
murder him. That's okay. So we have to get out of here. So one more thing, I wanted to talk about the group together. And 80s movies have this sort of tradition of like always feeling at the end. I'm gonna say this started with Star Wars, of feeling like the last 2 minutes of an SNL episode of everybody's just like celebrating and hugging
clapping
and glad handing. Yeah, we get that ending here. So does this work for you guys? Are you so cold-hearted and jaded that you're like, come on, 80s movie, or to see the three of them together, because all three of them are in love with all three of them, right? Does this final thing where they get out of this nudie nightclub, a nudie gentleman's club that they all escape, does that work for you, or were you guys rolling your eyes?
It worked for me because of the exact reason you said, Ryan, which is that like it's almost hacky to say like the three of them develop this really great relationship, but that is what you get here. And so rather than just like we're partying at the end of the movie because it's the 80s, like the Caddyshack, like, suddenly we all have solo cups and there's music playing in the background, that's like that's annoying because it's unearned. But like their relationship is something to be celebrated in this, and it's like one of the more advanced parts of the movie, and so it feels earned to me in some.
Yeah, they all their conflicts are tied up in the Jungle Club, and then as they're running away, laughing and being delighted, they're still almost getting hit by cars, and then it's just like New York's gonna keep on New Yorking. Like
in the Jungle Club, this gentleman's nudie place. Mike, you would call this movie a live-action cartoon. Which seems like a hacky sort of thing to say until at the end, Michael Keaton literally falls from 2 stories and lands two-dimensionally flat on the ground. So good for them. But the other thing that I loved about this ending, too, is that the 3 of them are running and they want to celebrate, but they can't. But then they look back and they all say, like, oh, they're not chasing
No one's chasing us.
We can end the movie now. Nobody's chasing us. They have let us left.
Honestly, though, that's also pretty a pretty interesting end to as an idea, right? Like, we don't have to run. Nobody's chasing us. We can just stop and celebrate. We can just be here with each other. There is nothing that is pursuing us right now. Like, we felt that there was, but we were wrong, because really all we have is like each other right now.
And then cut to 5 years later, and Michael Keaton is still on. They're married. You know, Henry Winkler and Shelley Long are married. Michael Keaton is still on their couch. They're screaming at each other about why won't he leave the house.
I'd watch that sitcom.
All right, we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, let's talk about this director. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far, and let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review, bye! Gentlemen, taste buds, if you will, this is our second comedy of the season, third if you count Das Boot. We talked a lot about the pacing of Fast Times. It was a major conversation point in that show. How did this movie work for you? Was it the greatest storytelling you've ever seen or the worst storytelling you've ever seen? Pick one of those.
I felt like pacing was a major issue with this. I felt like it took a little bit to get started, and then once it did, it was entertaining for like 25 minutes, and then it got boring for like 15 minutes, and then entertaining for another 10. I felt like it really had like ebbs and flows of energy.
See, I don't know, like, if maybe this is just because I thought it was funnier than you did, Greg, but it worked for me, and it reminded me of all of the comedies that we grew up with, the bad boys of SNL making movies, where it would be not, like more than half, like almost an hour of just hanging out with Spade or Farley or Sandler, and then 30 minutes of like boring plot, and then the movie was over. And so I kind of like that.
And the thing I loved was the montage of them getting successful. The movie's like, you've seen movies. You know what they're going to do. Can we just knock this out as fast as possible?
But that's not lazy writing. That to me was, okay, that's lazy writing. But to me it was also, I understand what are the best tools in my toolbox. That is my cast. I'm going to let them hang out and develop and bond. And I thought it worked.
I also felt like
it was economical.
The movie, to me, screeched to a halt anytime you had Chuck and his fiancée, Charlotte. Because, like, I know in the movie, she is supposed to be just another thing that is, like, weighing him down. But it's so hard not to see her as a person and then be like, what happened to this lady? Like, she's so damaged. Something is really wrong here. And so that sucks the energy out of it.
Is her in a movie that takes sex work more seriously than you expect and takes losers more seriously than you expect to be like, she thinks she's fat and she has definite mental issues. Isn't that hilarious? You're like, wait, what? And then she ramps up. I feel like they make her so crummy and shrewish. So when he cheats on his fiance, you're like, good for him.
Yeah,
but that undersells her as a person.
That is part of it. But I do want to talk about the difference between one note or flat, like intentionally flat characters and intentionally round characters. And I do think I don't know if we should talk about movies in these terms, but it's just hard not to. The addition of Shelley Long and how three-dimensional she is, the character, how well it's written, and the performance, does it allow you to just treat a different female character as more of an obstacle, like the city of New York is to Chuck, than an actual person?
I think there's just a huge difference between, like, if it's not Richard Belzer, the Richard Belzer lookalike, the two other
Oh, it's
people are
Belzer,
outside.
dude. It's
Okay.
Belzer, for
we just
sure.
have not talked about this.
Those guys are cartoons. Like they are so one note and it's fine. Versus the one note the movie tries to ring with Charlotte rings so false compared to the rest of the movie. Like I was not offended on behalf of pimps and gangsters for those two guys, but the note they're playing with her is just every hack sitcom wife.
Yeah, she has all of the issues.
She's
but
frigid.
turned up to 1,000 depression-wise.
She's got she's got body issues. She's got food issues, and the whole like check the apartment thing. I have to say, in 1982 in New York, not a bad idea to give that apartment a little
Son of
second.
Sam's running
yeah,
around.
dude. I mean, like, and the cops were so bad about keeping anybody out of your house or doing anything if somebody broke in. Dude, just give a little check, Henry Winks. Go in there, Fonz the door, make sure it's shut. Like, come on, man.
And also, Fonzie, you can shut one door facing the door. You don't have to turn around every time and shut it with your back leg. Like, I imagine every check-in is like, all right, 12 rats, 2 muggers, not a big deal. Let's have sex.
Yeah. Can you guys handle each other? We're gonna go bang. The one time she worked the best for me is I actually did really enjoy, and it lent itself to the live action cartoon vibe of I have to go help my neighbor who is a prostitute at court. I guess I'll bring my mom, my fiance, and my fiance's fucking country mouse, very religious parents with me. And that the whole court scene made me giggle a lot. Especially his mom was baffling because she was laughing the whole time in court.
This is
but
the
then
character.
was just like, you have to rein in Chuck.
Yeah.
You know how he gets.
This is the character that maybe Lowell Gans worked on one part of the mother character, and then Babalu Mandel. And you guys should not leave this episode before getting to say the screenwriters' names. It's
Babalu
super fun.
Mandel.
Those are the two ways I laugh. Is I either lol or I Babalu.
Yeah, she seems to just be so intrigued by like drama and things. Like she's cackling in the court, and then at one point just grabs somebody and screams, "You do not let this person, my son, run around like that." What is your character, bro? That's not three-dimensional. Looking at Ron Howard's directorial career, is this a weird early blip or the direction he should have followed, or was he sort of always following this? I sort of see this as a 90-minute or 2-hour-long TV episode in kind of the best way, where looking back on his career, especially my favorite movies of his, like Parenthood, aren't propelled by serious drama. The drama is second or third or fourth on the priority list. He just wants to, like, three-shot a living room and watch characters react.
And have performers perform with each other and off of each other and be in a shared emotional space. Like having, 3 folks in a shot, like that brings so much life and connectedness to them. Whereas in a lot of comedies, you get people riffing in these one shots and you can feel them not being present with each other.
His sitcom history serves him so well in his early movies, it feels. In this one, in Parenthood, in Splash even, this should have been what he kept doing. It's the fucking backdraft. I love Willow, but the Willow backdraft Apollo 13.
No.
Like,
Argument, Mike. Willow is obviously bullshit. But Apollo 13 is 3 people in a room for the vast majority of it just hanging out.
It's a bottle episode.
okay.
Yeah, it's a bottle episode, and I do think...
So it's the Grinch, Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man.
There you go.
Funky. His late 90s, early 2000s output.
But, like, I feel like you can tell... I don't know if we could do a tour theory on Ron Howard, right? I don't know if, like, he's the kind of guy where, like, you can watch a shot from a movie you've never seen and be like, oh, that's Ron Howard. But I think Apollo 13 is his perfect movie because he handles both the dramatic aspects of what is going on and the 3-shot in a room it all comes together
Is
perfectly.
that movie funnier than everybody remembers it to be?
I think so.
been a
Apollo
long time since I've
13,
seen it.
yeah, dude. There's like some real
Yeah.
corkers in that.
So
Oh,
it's
look
after
at
that
Greg
he
talking about like he understands that movie. He did not see the
His-
first 12, by the way.
his Oscar chasing movies is when it's like, come on, man, just go make fucking sex death comedies.
I mean, this is the person who, at this point, is now responsible for killing the Star Wars franchise and making J.D. Vance a household name. So, recent times have not been good for Ron Howard. But I do think, I made a joke earlier about how this would be the only Ron Howard movie that ever gets on a Movie of the Year. I think Apollo 13 is an important part of 1995 if we do that show. I think that it is probably his most perfect movie. And I think a lot of it is here of just these three people who love each other going through it.
I feel like a big part of 1995 also was graduating from middle school. I think we all had that shared experience. 95, graduating. 8th grade's over. High school, what's it going to be, guys? How's it going to be different?
What's next?
I
Yeah.
was born in 95, Greg. Fucking old piece of shit. Even that still makes me
disgusting.
I like
27.
I like to put little
No,
breadcrumbs of my personal information throughout the episodes of the show. That way, if someone wants to steal my ID, they have to at least listen to like 40 hours of our programming.
Hey, a listener is a listener.
We were all graduated middle school in 1995, lived in Meadowlark Lane with their mother's maiden name of Harold's.
That's like a middle ground Eminem song that Mike was just starting. Like, not the best, but not the worst.
I was going to make a joke about the last 4 digits of a social security number, and I was so sure I was going to say my own that like I just couldn't say
Say your own
anything.
5, 6, 7, 9. God damn it!
Crap, Greg, remember to take this out of the show. Oh, crap.
All right, you know what that sound means. Mike, go ahead and play the awards theme song.
Please play the award song.
Oh, cool. It sounds like Minions.
And the
That's just
awards
what we
go
need.
to...
Now, Greg, you did the research and looked up how many awards Night Shift won.
Yes, I did.
I actually could tell you. I did. Henry Winkler was nominated for a Golden Globe.
You know what? He deserved it.
He deserved that nomination.
deserved that nom.
We're going to start with recommendation. We just watched a 1982 Ron Howard directed sex comedy. Mike, what do you recommend?
I think if you enjoyed this, I'm going to go in a different direction. If you're like, I want more about death, but I want it to be funny, I'd say check out the book Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, which is the mortician Nay? Is that the right way to say that? The mortician cum author, Caitlin Doty, she's written a lot about death, but Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is like half memoir. It's about how she just got into it, and the smoke is dead people. It's a super funny, very dark book about how she became a mortician.
Greg, when Mike said, I'm going to recommend a comedic book about death, did you think that Mike was going to bring up his master's thesis that everyone should read?
Oh, so we are talking about real stuff on this show. Okay.
I didn't say the title. No one can find that. That sounds great, Mike. Thank you for recommending that. Greg, what do you got?
This movie has a good amount of Michael Keaton, but you'd be hard pressed to find a movie that had more Michael Keaton, right? You're not going to get 2 Michael Keatons, 3 Michael Keatons, 4 Michael Keatons. Shut up, idiot! You sound like so stupid right now because you can get that if you watch the movie Multiplicity, directed by Harold Ramis. You got 4 different Keatons, 2 normal ones. Well, kind of a normal one who's like cool. One who's effeminate in a way that maybe wouldn't fly nowadays, and
One who's a snowman who came to life.
It gives the police officers all the clues.
and one who didn't cook for long enough, again in a way that maybe wouldn't fly today. But it's Keaton on every base, and it's an absolute grand slam home run.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, we nominated Glenda, the female gremlin, for the Pop Filter Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just because of how much we talk about her more than anybody else ever talks about her. Multiplicity is also on that list.
Yeah.
We bring up Multiplicity a really
Wouldn't
crazy
you say,
amount.
like, the average person, if you said Multiplicity, they'd have no idea what you were talking about?
Oh, they bring it up
No.
roughly an average of 0 times per year or decade.
Yeah, they've never thought of it. They've never seen it. If they found the VHS, they'd be like, is this a real movie?
But we'll like Mike will say something dumb, and we'll be like, "Oh, what are you, the copy of Mike in the Clone Machine?" Because that fucking hilarious Michael Keaton 3rd copy.
Every time I eat pizza, I quote 4 and say, I like pizza. I like it. So I'm still going to the multiplicity well every time I eat pizza.
All right, gentlemen, I have a different recommendation. I am the host of the show. I can do whatever I want, and I'm going to do this now. He is the Fonz, of course. That's a little before our time, and we mostly know that from Lunch Pails. But he's also the star of Night Shift, and I would say, according to Greg's batting average theory, hit a huge batting, way more than you would expect.
Ichiro style.
Also, incredibly important parts of Arrested Development.
Yep.
And Barry.
Yep.
And Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec, yeah, dude, can't forget that.
And
Oh, yeah.
we have never heard a bad story about this person. There's some fear around the Pop Filter Hall of Fame of not putting in future fucking awful people.
Yes.
Or when it we put them in, and then the next week it turns out that they were on To Catch a Predator. My recommendation is that Henry Winkler moves into the Pop Filter Hall of Fame.
Hear, hear.
I love it.
Hear, hear.
I love when you break rules for good.
It has to be a unanimous vote. I am voting yes. Mike?
Yes.
Greg?
His Twitter every day is just pictures of fish that he caught with the biggest, warmest
And he's
smile
so
on his
delighted.
face. He's so happy. I am a definite vote yes. We have a little extra space.
Congratulations to Henry Winkler.
Wow. Hey.
The Pop Filter Hall of Famer. All right, let's get to the rest of the awards. First award is Best Michael Keaton Idea. There are over 2,000. I do not know how you guys are going to pick. Mike, what is the best Blaze idea?
For the one I thought of is one that eventually would exist and was not a terrible idea. He just said it in so much mouth vomit and instantly went to a worse idea. But it is tuna and mayo just in the package together.
Oh, I thought
And
it
that
was
would-
feed
and
tuna fish mayonnaise.
Well, that's where
what
he
you said.
eventually
That's
the
goes.
joke. Okay.
Yeah.
But his first idea, and sometimes first idea is best idea, Michael Keaton. And that one, I've eaten that, and I was like, yeah, that's not terrible. That is the only one of his ideas where I was like, this would make a profit.
And we do have to explain before we get through these awards that he did invent I think it was the Fluff and Dry twice, but it had already been invented.
It had already been invented, yeah.
Yeah. Greg, what do you got?
I love how after that he's like, I gotta make a note about this, and so he holds up his recorder and he just goes, "Call Sunkissed." That's the only note. I'm a big green guy. Earth, that's my jam. So I'm gonna say the paper that you can just eat when you're done with it, so that
Yeah.
way you don't have to worry about recycling it. That's an amazing idea. Like if he just needs to he's the idea guy, so he just needs to get somebody to invent
Right.
that. But as an idea, perfect. No notes.
That's how all three of us are screenwriters.
Yeah,
We come up with ideas for movies. Somebody else should type that shit up.
Yeah. We should get the story by, and I guess you get to put written by.
The cool thing about a really good idea is if you don't want to do it, you only have to wait a little bit before you see somebody else do it.
Yep.
So
And then you at your next cocktail party, you go, I thought of that.
I thought of the Truman Show. Oh yeah, you did. What do you? Yeah, I thought of what if someone's life was like a show. Oh wow, congratulations.
And then they made Ed TV.
Tuna and mayo is a wonderful idea, but I'm going to give that to Greg for edible paper because he says he explains edible paper, and then Chuck is like, and then what? And Blaze is like, and then it's gone. And that's
gone.
it. That's then what else do you need to know, bro?
Think about all that, the extra cheese and burger grease you could eat if it was edible paper. That is a good one. I was thinking too realistically, and I'm sorry.
All right, we talked about this before. We'll start with Greg. Cringiest moment.
Yeah, for me, it was, I love the sex work positive message of this movie. Very much my jam. I'm so much in favor of that. I don't like as a rationale that, a guy who's on a business trip might assault a child if sex work is not available. I didn't love the way he put that. I don't think that that's why we need to have access to safe and regulated access to sex work. And it was like they went for so many jokes, trying to steal her cookies, break her cookies, and it's like, okay, this is a joke about a really icky topic, kind of nestled into another icky topic, nestled into this movie that has a lot of positive messages, and the dissonance took me out of it.
I'm always wrong about when I assume what is scripted and what is improvised. always wrong. But I feel like this has the feeling of it was improvised, and they love the jus, the vouge, I don't know, the feel of it so much. Like we got to keep it, even though, don't keep that.
I felt the same thing about the improv. I thought the prostitution, like him giving a little lecture on prostitution, that felt very
which I thought was delightful.
Improv to me.
Pros, we don't know what that means. Tit.
That should even be in there.
Two. That's two tits.
I'm going to say I don't think it's written because towards the end, unless he improved it, and they're like, well, now we need Girl Scouts beating the shit out of Henry Winkler because they think he's one of these guys that Michael Keaton. It's Chekhov's Girl Scout rapist.
Who run into an elevator and beat up Chuck with, it looks like cartons of cigarettes.
Those are Bluebells, and they're attacking him with their cookies.
No, I'm pretty sure this is New York, Greg. And Girl Scouts sell cartons of cigarettes door to door. Like, is that your cringe moment?
No, my cringe moment is how long we be up there till the wedding. That's 9 months. Perfect delivery of that's 9 months. But that is where we're like, oh, at no point does he go, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, I don't care how you look, or you're not fat.
Romance.
He doesn't
try something, you bitch.
She's the whole that scene. She's just like, I'm such a fat piece of shit, and like it's just like, oh, this is what she's gonna be this whole movie. Great.
All he does with her is say like, can we have sex now? Man, try to do something to set the mood. Like, she's in the other room, and so you're just laying in bed, just staring at the ceiling. Come on, dude, get off your duff, do something.
He did the Ryan classic. He did the Ryan classic, which is kiss the neck twice and then boob grab. Like, I feel like that's what sets the mood better than that.
Mwah, mwah, twist. Mwah, mwah, twist.
That is a pop song. That's a dance song waiting to happen.
That's going to be on the TikTok.
My cringe, and I don't get to pick, but my cringe was this movie was doing such a good job of doing one thing specifically, and I was waiting for it just because I'm used to like early 80s comedies. And then it blew it right towards the end of Henry Winkler being like, oh man, my life can't get any worse in the prison cell. And then looks over to a gay guy who blows a kiss at him and is like, well, I guess I was wrong. It can get worse. Like, we got so close to the end without that fucking gay panic joke, bro.
Yeah. And why did they put a trombone that goes, wah, wah?
Well, there was a trombone player that was arrested that night. So he was just in there. That one goes to Greg as well. That fucking jump on a Girl Scout thing. Or Bluebell. I'm sorry.
No, in that context, he does say Girl Scout.
So even grosser, because bluebells are not a real thing. I live on the West Coast. We have a director named Ron Howard. We tried to talk about him. We avoided the subject because what is the subject? Mike, what is your director signature moment?
Good. I'm glad I'm going first on this. Yeah, we had a whole 10-minute segment that was supposed to be devoted to him, and instead we said no. So I'm going to say I think Ron Howard is a journeyman director. And the Howard Grazer have done many things in Hollywood. So I'm going to say that very economical. I think he's good at being economical. That montage of like, let's fucking hustle and get to the part people care about.
We already gave the right answer to this, Greg. What do you have?
Fuck. This is going to be maybe a weird answer. I can't tell. There is sometimes you see something in a movie and you just think he had this idea when he was 7. And I gotta tell you, that dude getting thrown out of the window and falling through the hoop, I am almost sure that an extremely young version of him came up with that idea and is like, I'm gonna do it. It doesn't really fit with the movie. It takes up a lot of time. It is hardly connected to anything else that happens. It's the intro before the extremely long titular song. But I just have this feeling that he always was committed to having that guy get thrown through a basketball hoop.
Should we break down the word titular?
Euler, nobody knows what that means.
You got tit, we all know what that means. Tit. Chew, that shouldn't even be
I heard
in there.
that he came up with that shot in between takes of Gary and Deanne on The Music Man, so he did have it. I wish this was a pointed show. I bet I'd get fucking Ron Howard points for that.
Absolutely not. The correct answer is, of course, knowing when to just leave the camera on your 2 or 3 incredible leads. So no points awarded for that. And finally, and I don't know, man, maybe I'm gonna be a hipster about this. And if you pick the obvious one, you're not gonna get any points. But Greg, pound for pound performance, and the correct answer is obviously Richard Belzer. If Richard Belzer is in a movie, then he automatically wins this award. But
obviously.
Go ahead.
But that would ruin everything, so we're going to say besides that. For me, it's so close between Henry Winkler and Shelley Long, man. But I got to go with Henry Winkler. I was really impressed with his work in this.
Pop filter Hall of Famer Henry Winkler?
Yeah, dude. It foreshadowed everything he was going to become that taught us his real level of talent. And if he had just more projects delivered to him in this wheelhouse at the age he was when he made this, I think he could have been Michael Keaton and him could have like switched careers from this point forward. But so I'm going to go Henry Winkler.
Between the three that we mentioned for the Hall of Fame speech of Zuckerkorn, Cousineau, and the Parks and Rec dentist, Saperstein, I feel like that Chuck is trying to not fall, like not have his morals or ethics fall to the ground. Try to like work at every moment. And then in the future, he was like, you know what? My characters, fuck that. Like they are as low and disgusting as they possibly can be.
While still being like nice and conciliatory. So like it takes you a second to realize that they will do anything, you know?
And there's a little bit though of like how funny everyone thought it was when Betty White would say something horny. Like the fact that this is coming out of Henry Winkler's mouth is in his future roles was such a part of the comedy. Mike, what do you got?
One I have is his pound for pound performance because it should always go to the Belzer. I'm going to say this is now called the Hell's Bells.
Okay.
Is the name of the award.
Sure.
And I think for an ensemble piece and for a comedy to not try to chew the scenery, to not try to one up your compatriots and just own it. I agree. It has to be Winkler to always be like, I'll go quieter because he's going louder. I call that the Brian Husky. It's just fucking you elevate everybody around you when you do that.
Brian Husky, of course, much like that other guy, name I can never remember. I can never remember Brian Husky, and I can never remember the other guy. He played David Letterman in the Late Shift movie.
John Cameron Mitchell.
No.
Right? No.
That's the director of Short Buzz.
Hedwig.
Yeah, that's Hedwig. Michael Higgins? John Michael Higgins.
John Michael Higgins. I knew it was the three-namer.
And Brian Husky. They should get together and do something.
I offered nothing in that. I just sat there and watched that happen.
You just watch. You're like, well, let's see if they do it.
They'll get there.
Yeah, so 2 Henry Winklers. I think you guys are right. 1,000 points each.
Okay, wait. That's a good idea for a movie. But what if instead of 2 Henry Winklers, we're talking 4 Henry Winklers?
Winklipicity.
In a war against 4 Michael Keatons?
Yeah.
And they decide to start various levels of morgue brothels?
No matter who wins, we also win.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to see about Night Shift's future in the bracket. All right, gentlemen, as we noted before, this was a bonus show. Night Shift can't win the whole thing, but it can win Moody's. Do you think that what is the over-under on Moody's this movie could win?
3.
3. And
under.
I'm going to say 2.5. Should be the over-under. Let me tell you one thing. It feels like it's going to be a shoo-in for on-screen duo, except it's going to split its own vote because I think it's got 3 on-screen duos.
Oh, no. And one of those being Michael Keaton and Kevin Costner?
Uh-huh. Oh, that fucking Flash, man. What good
and
screenshotting
Shannon Doherty
that was.
and Henry Winkler.
Does it take down, because I get to add awards for the Moody's at the end of the year.
Yeah, you do.
Does it take down best Vince Schiffarelli performance?
I don't know. He did a pretty good job. I hope this is who I'm thinking of in Fast Times. Right?
Also, we
Is
don't
that
know
the same
because
actor?
we have 4 more performances of his to watch throughout.
He's
going to
be in every other movie we watch the rest of 82. He worked hard that year.
Yeah, I'm glad that we watched this. I'm glad that we were able to dip a toe in the sex comedy realm. Although maybe we did that with Fast Times anyway, but not like feel terrible about society.
Right.
Yes.
Is there any movie you guys wish this was in the real bracket instead of? Or is 82, like we've learned every season, every movie or every year is just a strong year for movies?
Every year's a strong year for movies, but also we're the type of people who are like, comedy never gets its due. And then it's because so many comedies
don't give it its due.
Yeah, like they're so much more lazily made than all the other movies. You know, it's hard to argue for them.
There's so much of a feeling of like, that was the best we could do that day to comedies. You know, so we tried our best. That's, but I don't wish that it were in it instead of anything else. But it very much did add context and flavor to 1982, and I'm glad I saw it because like. This is by far my favorite Shelley Long performance, and I have a different understanding of her as an artist now because this performance was like very good. I was just it's very impressive.
So much so that you buy why she left the hottest show on television to go be in movies,
Yeah.
to go be in
So
Troop
she-
Beverly Hills.
Yeah, that's the only other fucking because my wife was like, why do I know this lady? And I was like, Cheers, Troops of Beverly Hills, other films. Like, did she fizzle
The Money
out after
Pit
that?
with Tom Hanks.
Of course, The Money Pit with Tom Hanks.
All right, Greg, we have so many shows coming up, but I want to talk to you about two that we still have.
Okay.
The Thing and Poltergeist. They're still out there.
I know, dude. They're getting close.
Lurking.
Eventually, we have to. You keep pushing them forward. You keep saying no, not this week.
I don't know which one I'm more afraid of. I'm pretty equally
I think
I'm
it
pretty
should be The
equally
Thing.
afraid of both.
I think it should be The Thing by a lot.
I think it should be The Thing, but I think it will be Poltergeist.
Is it?
I can't wait to find
It's
out.
here.
But like the catchphrase is for The Thing. It's clobbering time. Yancey
Yeah, that's
Street.
pretty good.
Ever-loving
Ever-loving
Blue-Eyed
Blue-Eyed.
Thing. Yeah.
Blue-eyed, yeah.
Sweet Petunia.
Yeah, definitely.
My Aunt Petunia's sweet ass. What did he say? Doesn't matter.
That was it.
That's the Night Shift Show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your tied victory. Next week, we will continue to dive into the world of 1982. Please, everyone, keep watching those movies.
Please. So, while Americans overwhelmingly support the right of an individual to make their own decisions about abortion, unfortunately, that right is no longer protected anywhere in the U.S. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade on June 24th. Abortion is a basic healthcare need for millions of people who can become pregnant. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans. Even if you live in a state where abortion rights are upheld, access to safe medical procedures shouldn't be determined by location, and it shouldn't be the privilege of a small few. And we're already seeing certain medical practices be restricted even in those states. You can help by donating to local abortion funds. To find out where to donate for each state, visit donationsforabortion.com. That's the number 4, donationsforabortion.com. If you or someone you know needs help, or if you want to get more involved, here are 5 resources. 1. Shout Your Abortion is a campaign to normalize abortion. 2. Don't Ban Equality is a campaign for companies to take a stand against abortion restrictions. 3. Abortion.cafe has information about where to find clinics. 4. PlantCpills.org provides early at-home abortion pills that you can keep in your medicine cabinet. And 5. Choice.crd.co. That's choice.crd.co has a collection of these resources and more. You can also find all the links to these resources at podvoices.help and in the show notes. We encourage you to speak up, take care, and spread the word.